Good evening. My name is Danny Eller. I'm a retired United States military veteran, and quite often we had to jumpstart our vehicles under harsh conditions, and I'm going to show you how to properly do that and safely do that. First, I'd like to go over a reference. Reference is the owner manual. In this case, it's a Lucerne for this motor, for this vehicle, the white one, and the brown vehicle is also a General Motors vehicle. Some of the safety precautions I'd like to go over. Number one, usually the batteries are located in the engine compartment. In the engine compartment, gases can sometimes leak above the battery because they're filled with acid and other chemicals, and that could be ignited from the spark. I'm going to show you how to properly hook up your jumper cables and minimize the chances of a spark. First, you will also make sure that all the electronic equipment in the vehicle is off, no air conditioning, radio, and that anything plugged into the charging receptacles are taken out. Now, these vehicles do not have the batteries in the engine compartment. They're remotely located, and these are remote terminals on both vehicles. In this vehicle on my left, the SUV, the batteries are located in the floorboards in front of the second row seats. In the white car, the battery is located underneath the rear seat cushion. And again, we have remote terminals. Now, getting to the battery cables, the battery jumper cables, not all battery jumper cables are the same. Do not get the battery jumper cables that are skinny and very short. Usually those ones in the little packs on the auto safety little kits are only about 6 feet long and very thin, and they are not capable of carrying the juice required to start modern day vehicles, especially with the high compression engines. This vehicle has not a large engine, a 3.6 liter V6, but it is very high compression. It takes a lot of power to turn over. So these cables have to be very thick, like these. These cables are proper gauge and can be used to start a diesel truck, and they're long. These are 16 feet long. Make sure your cables are no shorter than 10 to 12 feet, or else you will not be able to use them in most cases. Now, first, what we're going to do is connect up to the vehicle needing assistance. Now, a lot of people will say hook up the negative first. That is absolutely, definitely wrong. Negative is almost always black. Well, will be always black. Positive is usually red, but in this case, it is yellow. So it can be yellow or red, usually red. You hook that one, the positive, up first, making sure you get a good solid connection and it's not touching some other metal. In this case, you have a remote negative connector, and this is located on the motors. If you have a battery and it has a negative connection here on the battery, do not connect to the battery. Remember, we don't want spark over top the battery. You hook to a similar bracket, usually located on the motor. Then we'll go over to the other vehicle. Now, you notice that I have the positive secured on this before I hooked it up. The reason is because you do not want the positive touching the negative once it's connected to a battery, even one that is discharged. It can cause an arc and cause electronic failure. Now again, you hook up the positive first, get a good connection, making sure that it doesn't touch any other metal in the vehicle, and then you will hook up the negative. In this case, the negative is remotely located here on the firewall. Now what you do is you will then attempt to start the vehicle again, making sure no electronic equipment is on and that the auto light feature is turned off. The headlights are not drawing power. If it fails to start, fails to turn over, then what you do is start the donor vehicle and let it run approximately 5 minutes. After the 5 minutes of running, you will then again attempt to start the vehicle needing assistance, and should start. If it's turning over and it still doesn't start, then your problem is something other than the low battery and is causing the vehicle not to start. If it is dragging and doesn't turn over enough to give it a proper crank to start the vehicle, then you will allow the vehicle the donor vehicle to run and charge the vehicle for another 10 or 15 minutes, and then attempt to start the vehicle again. It should start. If it doesn't start, check your connections on the battery cables, and if the connections are good, allow the donor vehicle to run another 5 to 10 minutes. See if it'll get enough power, making sure during that time that all the accessories possible you can cut off that are possible to cut off that are off, and then give it another try in 5 to 10 minutes. If the motor is cranking over, then you've got a good connection, and your issue with it starting is something other to do than a weak battery. Now I'm going to show you how to disconnect. You disconnect the batteries in reverse order to how you connect them up. You connected the negative last. Now you're going to take it off first, and then you're going to take off the positive. Secure the positive so it doesn't touch the negative. And you're going to do the same here. Negative first, and then the positive. Secure your protective covers. And on the vehicle started, you want to make sure it runs for approximately 30 to 45 minutes before you cut it off to give the battery enough charge to start the vehicle. You can also do the same thing with a battery charger, ensuring it's not plugged in. Plug the red positive to positive, then the negative, and you can put it on 100 amp start. But in that case, you have to let it hum for about 5 to 10 minutes to build enough amps into the battery and for it to turn over the motor. I hope that will help you in case you have some emergency or roadside emergency, and to safely jump start your vehicle. That is the conclusion of my speech.